All right, everyone. Well, it's 6:01, so we will go ahead and get started with our second clinic. So welcome to the First Timers program and welcome to our second clinic already, second of six. This one is going to be all focused on the swim, but if you have questions outside of that, throw them in the chat. So real quick for anyone who wasn't here or hasn't watched the first clinic, my name is Gillian Faley, and I am the founder of an organization called Live Grit. And at this time, what Live Grit does is we use the sport of triathlon to empower youth here in Chicago. I started the First Timers program with the Chicago Triathlon 8-9 years ago when I also owned a triathlon store, with the whole idea of doing exactly what we do with the kids now, with the kids through our kids program, which is I think triathlons can be and are incredibly empowering. It's an amazing experience. It's an amazing community. You're doing something that is just, you're swimming, biking, and running all in one day. So it's just it's something that's just amazing and empowering. So that was the goal with the First Timers program. We've carried it on, and my whole goal here today and throughout the summer is to make sure that on race day you feel as comfortable as possible. You know what to expect, what's going to happen, so that you can just go out there and enjoy the day, do something epic, and feel amazing after you cross that finish line. So that's who I am. With that being said, I am not, I do not work for the Chicago Triathlon. I am very closely related to them. So any logistical questions about registration and things like that, I will probably direct you towards somebody at the Chicago Triathlon, but I can certainly make that connection. I'm here to answer the questions about, what to wear, what's the course like, big question of the night, do I need a wetsuit? Those kinds of things. So at the end of the presentation, my email address. Feel free to email me anytime with any specific questions for you that you have. I'm happy to answer anything. But today, in every clinic, it's really about what all of you, the athletes, want to know. So as we go along, just pop your questions into the chat, and I'll try to kind of monitor those as we go along. And if I don't know the answer tonight, I will get the answer for the next clinic. This is being recorded. Presumably you've joined the Facebook group, which is where I will post it. If you don't have Facebook, it's just the easiest way we've found to have kind of a community. But if you don't have Facebook, feel free to email me and I will send you directly to the YouTube link. Or you can also look on YouTube, and Live Grit has a whole channel with all of these clinics from the past and the ones we post for this year. So with that, we are going to kick things off talking about the swim. So I'm going to go back to the beginning a little bit here. And if you were here last ago, some of this is going to be a little bit of a refresher, but here are the race distances. Again, hopefully you maybe looked at them before you signed up for whatever race you're taking on this year. But here are the distances. The swim for the super sprint, which is the Saturday race that takes place up at Foster Beach, is 0.23 of a mile. The sprint, which is on Sunday, is just a little bit shy of half of a mile. And then we have the international or Olympic distance. So international and Olympic used interchangeably is 0.93 of a mile. So if we take a look at the map here, so this is the map specifically for the super sprint on Saturday. Doing the super sprint, one of the big differences between this race and the Sunday race is that this is a beach start. So you're going to start on the beach, run into the water, and as you see, this blue arrow up here is the course. So you're going to go out into the water, then you're going to take a turn around a buoy, and then take another turn and come back in. So there will be a portion of it that you can touch the ground. Depending on water conditions, they set this course. So I can't tell you exactly how far each piece, how far out you're going to go or across you're going to go, because they set that based on just the waves and the current and things like that. But it's going to be a U. Most likely there will be a portion where you can't touch anymore. It's not going to be obviously as deep as swimming in the harbor on Sunday, but you still aren't going to be able to touch. So I just want you to have that in your mind now. And so the theme of tonight and the theme of the rest of the 14 weeks until the triathlon or whatever it is get in the open water. That is the most important thing about doing your first triathlon, is getting, for 99% of us, is to get in the open water as much as possible. So this is the swim course for the super sprint. Then if we head back over to the Sunday races, which is starting off with the international. So backing it up a little bit, for anybody not here last week, this transition area is this orange area right here. And there was also an orange area on the super sprint just south of the swim. This is your transition area. This is your home base. This is where you're going to go before the race, during the race, and after the race to get your stuff. So note that if you've been down by the lake, it's right by the yacht club, a big grassy area that they set up a bunch of racks and everything right there. So the swim start, though, is down here at Balboa Avenue, so about halfway down the slide. And that's where both the international and the sprint athletes are going to get into the water. If you're doing the international distance, you are the darker blue here. So this is, you're going to get in the water and then head south towards the Shed Aquarium, do a 180-degree turn, and then head back north. It's about 380 meters south before you make that 180-degree turn to go back north. If you're doing this, if you're a sprint athlete, you're going to get in the water and go directly north. So you're this lighter blue arrow. Same course, same place. It's just a matter of whether you go south first or you're just going to head north. Now, one thing we'll talk about a little bit, but I'll talk about it now, is the good thing to know about this is some triathlons, much like the super sprint, might have multiple turns that you have to make. If you're doing the sprint, the wall of the the water is always going to be on your left side. So this is good to know when you're out practicing for the next, again, 15 weeks, of knowing that the wall is going to be on the left. And this is important because the wall is one thing that can really help you sight and stay in a straight line. As I talked about last time, if you start getting closer to the wall, you're swimming at a diagonal. If you're getting away from the wall, you're swimming at a diagonal. You're never going to be able to swim that far out into Lake Michigan before one of the boats, which I'll show you in a few minutes, and have pictures of, stops you and says, turn the other way. So don't worry about, getting lost out into Lake Michigan. Now, if you're doing the international distance, part of your swim, the wall's going to be on your right, and part of it's going to be on the left. So just something good to know. One big question a lot of people often ask is, should I, when I'm swimming, should I breathe on both sides? The reality, and what we're going to talk about is a lot about the swim. 100% depends on where you're coming into this. If you're only comfortable breathing on one side, that's fine. And I would not, try to force to bilateral breathe by the time you get to race day. It is no big deal. But just knowing, being able to practice, how are you going to sight and see where you're going? And I'll talk a little bit more about sighting and staying in a straight line a little bit later on in the presentation. But this is the course. You're then going to get out of the water up between Monroe and Adams Street, and then go back into transition. So I think we've covered the course pretty extensively over these last 2 weeks. So we'll move on from here. So how does the day work? Again, a little bit of a recap, but I'm going to go through this quickly. First thing, everybody is going to be assigned to a wave. If you are in the first timers wave, and you can check this on your Athleta links, or the link they gave you when you registered, it will say I'm registered. It should say, what I was told is it should say I am registered for the first timers wave. If you are actually registered for the first timers wave, you are going to be in a wave with all of the first timers. So age across the board, male, female, non-binary, everybody's going to be in the same wave. And I'll talk a little bit about the reason why that it works that way is now this, to start the swim is a time trial start. It used to be that they would start like 50 athletes at a time. So then they broke them down in age group and things like that. But now that it's time trial start, all the first timers are going to be in the same wave. Now, if you are not officially in the first timers wave, and you want to be, you can either change that in your registration link to the registration site that they gave you, or email me and I can give you the right contact to switch into that wave. Alternatively, if you are here getting the information but want to be in the kind of general wave, then those are broken down by male, female, non-binary, and then by age. And so there'll be smaller wave groups in the general kind of race. The difference between the first timers program and the general race program is, as a first timer, because of some of the extra support, like people in transition, like the officials. So there are officials or referees, I guess. I don't know what I always forget what they call them. But they will know that you're a first timer, by your swim cap color, by where you're racked. And oftentimes there's a little more leeway on things. So because of that, if you're in the first timers program, you are not eligible for the age group awards. You will still get a time and you will still get a rank. But if you anticipate to win the triathlon and want that prize, then you might want to switch over to the general race category. If there's any questions about that, let me know. But you don't have to do that today. I do it middle of the summer. You can make that decision and we can talk more about it. But wanted to say that about how the waves are set up. This is the schedule, I think, from last year. So you can kind of generally see. I'm not going to go through as in depth as I did the clinic before, but basically international and Olympic go first, and then the sprint athletes go. Sprint athletes don't have to come rack their bikes and put their stuff in at 4 a.m. There's another time that the late sprint check-in opens, which is 6:30 a.m. I know the biggest question, and I said this last time, and I really hope people trust me. You will see down at like 9:45, last athlete enters water, last athlete exits water. First thing, you all will not be, if you're in the first timers program, you're not going to be the last wave, or at least that has never been the case. So you will not be the last athletes to enter the water. So you will have significantly more than that 30 minutes. And like I said last time, according to the head official, who we asked this question to about swim cutoffs last year, as long as you are moving forward in some kind of manner, you are not going to be pulled out of the water, and they have not done that. The only time athletes don't quite finish the swim is And if you were here last time and heard my first triathlon story, because I had never been in open water, I had a panic attack and I was like, I'm done for today. But I'm here talking about this, so obviously I came back for another. But as long as you're moving forward, you're going to be great. So really try not to focus on swim cutoffs. But there are here, they do put them here because they have to. So hopefully that helps. So how does this all work? You're going to have your time that the transition is open. So like we saw before, international 4 to 5:30. If you want to come rack your bike and put your stuff down as a sprint athlete, you're more than welcome to during that time. And then for sprint athletes, it reopens at 6:30 until close to 8 or whatever it is. So you're going to come the morning of. You're going to have a bag, whether it's a backpack or one of the plastic bags. They're going to give you mini plastic bags, and I'll explain what they're all for. But you're going to have all of your stuff for the swim, for the bike, and the run in your bag. You are going to go into transition with your bike, unless you racked your bike the night before, and we'll talk about that during the bike clinic. You're going to go into transition. Only athletes can go into transition. You're going to find your rack number. So like this rack is 42. That's going to correspond it's going to have been on your packet that says I'm weight 42. And then there's going to be a number on your bib that corresponds to the numbers on these racks. And then you're going to set up your stuff for the rest of the day. So given that the order is swim, bike, run, your bike stuff and your run stuff is going to stay in transition while you go to do the swim. Now, in about a month or 6 weeks or so, we'll do a transition clinic. So we will only talk about transitions and how you set up your stuff. So I'm not going to go into that today. But the important thing to know is, okay, so you put your stuff at transition. What do I need to take with me down to the swim start? Because you're going to go down to the swim start and you're going to wait for a minute or a few minutes. So what you're going to want to take with you at that point is you're going to be wearing something. So it could be a triathlon suit. If you're deciding to go the bathing suit way, whatever it is you're wearing, you're going to be wearing that. If you're going to wear a wetsuit, you're going to take that with you. You're going to have your goggles. You're going to have your swim cap. You're going to have your timing chip, which is going to be a little chip that's on kind of an ankle band that's going to go on your ankle. You're going to have pre-race food that you might want. So again, knowing if you are in transition, if you're leaving transition at 5 a.m., but say your wave's not going off until 7 a.m., what is it that you're going to want to eat or drink in between there? So water, banana, whatever it might be. We'll talk about nutrition near the end and what to think about there, but whatever you're going to want to eat before you get into the water. You're also going to you may want, as you can see, you may want to take with you flip-flops or a long sleeve t-shirt or whatever it might be to walk down to the swim start. It's concrete. It's fine. Most people walk in bare feet, but if you don't want to, then you'd want to wear flip-flops again, or if it's cold. I think this day actually might have been kind of a colder day. You may need a sweatshirt or something. But you also see, I remember this year, that's one of the pluses. If you're wearing a wetsuit and it's a colder day, you can put it on to keep you warm. Now you also see here on the ground, there's people with these plastic bags. That's a gear check bag. So there is the option to put some stuff in one of these clear plastic bags. It'll have your number on it, and then there'll be a gear drop right by the swim start, and then that bag will make its way down to the finish line. So inevitably the question is like, can I put my phone and wallet and keys in there? There's no rules about what you can and cannot put in there. I have never heard of anybody getting anything lost, but just know it's not, it's volunteer run, like, they put all the bags in a big bag and take it down to the end. So it's kind of, weighing the pros and cons of what you really need or not need. Um, but that, just so you know, that is an option. Um, and then let's see. Okay, let me stop for a couple of questions. So real quick here, how many people compete in Sunday's race? So triathlon used to be, and it may still be, I don't know, the world's largest triathlon. I think years ago it topped out at like 8,000 people. From what I last heard, I think they're anticipating around 5,000 this year, across the three races. So it is a big race, and which is also why, it takes so long to get everybody in the water. But I promise you, it does not feel like it takes long. But like I said last time, it's a big race, but you're not going to feel like you are on top of people. There's always enough room. The way that they time it is really well done. So you're not going to feel, it's not going to be like mass, people everywhere in the water. It's very well timed. And then one other question, is there a shuttle bus or anything from the swim or from transition to the swim start? And there is not. You do have to walk. It's probably, like I'd have to look, like 4 blocks or so. The other thing I would say is that you are going to have time between when transition closes and when your wave is. The first timers will not be the first wave. They always set up, there's the triple challenge, there's like the, pro race, there's charity waves, things like that. So you will not be the first wave. So you'll have more than enough time to kind of take your time, and make your way down there. And along the way, there's like halfway down at Queen's Landing are the bathrooms. They have a few stop, or at least one stop for water and bananas. So things like that. So it won't, you can kind of take your time to get down there. So the next question is about the timing. So when you get your race results, you are going to have 5 times. You are going to have a swim time, a T1, which is transition 1. That's the swim to the bike time. A bike time, a transition 2 times, so T2 time, and then a bike time. So 5 different times. In this race, T1 does start when you get out of the water. So once you get up the staircase, which I'm going to show in a minute, there's a timing chip on the ground, and that's when your transition 1 time starts. So that's going to include the 450-yard run, walk that comes after it. Again, I'm going to show in a minute what I'm talking about there. But yes, it does, right when you get out of the water, up the stairs, that's when that time starts. And then a great question that I knew was going to come, what about when they cancel the swim portion? Do they typically do that the day of? The answer, yes, unless, the 2 times that they have canceled the swim portion, I think it's only 2 in the 10 plus years that I've done this, both were the morning of, and both were because of the waves, which is very strange because the other 8 years, the harbor is pretty calm. So it's kind of like lives in the extremes, but they have canceled it, 2 times in over the years. And it was done the morning of. They try to do it pretty early, around the like 3:30, 4:30 time, so that people know what to expect when you get there. So last year was one of the years they did cancel the swim because of the waves. So hopefully that is not the case this year, but that is what happens. Okay, I think I answered them all. All right. So this is a picture of the waiting for the wave to go. So we will have a dedicated area if you want to come for just for first timers and families and friends and really anybody that just wants like a supportive environment as they embark on their first amazing triathlon race. So you're gonna wait, and then at some point, it's gonna get called, or it's gonna get close to called. So because of how many people and just the way that it goes, you're actually gonna line up, as you're seeing in these pictures, about 30-35 minutes before you're going to get into the water. Again, it might seem like a long time, but once you get in that line, between the energy, between getting your goggles ready, between just moving forward and watching the other waves go, so during this time you'll have a front row view to the other athletes swimming, so you can kind of see how it works. But they're going to hold up signs. I thought I had one. Oops. The sign, but I don't think I do. Okay. Well, there'll be a sign that says like wave 42. So that's also one of the benefits. If you come down to the first timers area, we will all, when it's time, walk down so you know when to go. But really, you're just waiting until you see the first timers wave sign, and then you go and get in line behind it. And you look for everybody that has the same color swim cap as you have. So you're going to wait in line to get ready. This is a good opportunity depending on if it's hot. If it's hot, you don't want to put your wetsuit on too early. So you can get in line and then finish putting on your wetsuit, as Jacob here is zipping up somebody's wetsuit, getting ready to go. And then you're going to work your way up to the front. Now, because the swim was canceled last year and the year before was the first time that they did a time trial start, I don't have a lot of pictures of it, so I apologize for the graininess of it, but it's all I could come up with. So the swim for Sunday is a time trial start, meaning you're going to go 5, 6, 7 athletes at a time. And basically you're line up on a line, and they actually though have cones. So you'll be behind kind of a tall cone, and there'll be somebody there that is telling you to go. When you go, you're going to cross over a timing chip mat. That's when your time is going to start. And then you're going to go down a set of stairs and get into the water. You can dive in, you can go feet first in, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. Whatever way you want to go, you can go. And there's not going to be somebody, they wait like 30 seconds or so behind you. So it's not like there's going to be people right on top of you. So most of my tips are going to be directed towards people who, like myself, swam as a kid but didn't have a super strong swimming background. If you are a super strong, comfortable swimmer, then you may not need to fully take in what I'm saying on some of these tips. Like, for example, when I get into the water, I don't just all of a sudden start swimming as fast as I can. I take a moment to get acclimated, comfortable, start off slow, get into a rhythm before I kind of take off. And that's what I've learned over the years, helps me from avoiding that I have a little minor panic attack every time I get into the water. But I've learned to kind of overcome that by just taking my time. The swim is the shortest part of the triathlon. And really the goal here is to go at a pace and in a way that you get out of the water feeling good, having a lot more gas in the tank, feeling confident. So whatever you need to do that is what I would recommend you do. So the swim, here's, I think, a great picture that shows what the swim is going to look like. So this is all the athletes here are swimming north. So you can see kind of the aquarium down on the south end. As you can also see, it is a very spectator-friendly swim, which is one of the really cool things. So you'll see lots of people cheering you on, your family, friends, you'll have lots of random people cheering you on. I'll be there cheering you on. So that's one positive. So you can tell anybody, that you're telling about the triathlon, that they'll be able to see you on the swim. One of the other things I want to note here is you can see the boats kind of lining the swim. So there are boats all along the way. Also, looking at this picture, I think it's kind of reiterates that the swim, though there are a lot of people in this triathlon, gets very spread out. There's a lot of distance between all of these people, which is a really, makes for a nice swim. We've talked about the boats. We talked about them last time. There's going to be boats, kayaks, people on surfboards. The good thing is you can grab on to any of the boats, any of the kayakers, the wall, I think is my next picture, the wall, any of these things you can use to take a break if you need. The only thing is you cannot move forward with them. So they obviously can't row you to the finish line or to the swim exit. You can't go on the wall and kind of climb your way down. You can take a break and then let go and then start swimming again. You can do that all the way down if you need to. Whatever it is, that is totally allowed. Now, the one thing I do want to caution is the wall. It can seem very appealing to swim as close to the wall as possible. It can make us feel more comfortable. But two things. One, depending on the time of year and such, it can be covered in barnacles. So just being really careful if you do grab on where you grab or put your feet. Two, one of the mistakes I made the first time I ever did the Chicago Triathlon is I was like, oh, nobody's swimming next to the wall. I'm going to go over there and swim next to the wall. But what I didn't realize is because there was a little bit of a wave, not big waves, but they would crash into the wall and then come back and kind of create a washing machine kind of situation that was very difficult to swim through. So I quickly turned back more out to Lake Michigan. So two things to think about. As a last resort, go for it. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend, unless it's a crystal clear, like glass day, swimming super close to the wall. There are no style points. There are no rules about what stroke you can do. You can flip on your back. You can do backstroke. Flipping on your back is a great way to catch your breath, get your bearings, whatever it is, just taking a little break. So you can do it. You can do breaststroke. You can do whatever it is that you need to do to get to the end. Now, you are wearing a wetsuit. The most efficient and easiest stroke is going to be freestyle. So because the way a wetsuit is designed, it's not really great with the breaststroke. You can do it, but it's not the most ideal. If you're not wearing a wetsuit, there have been plenty of people that I know that feel more comfortable doing like breaststroke or whatever than freestyle. And again, this really, the swim is really about where everybody is coming from. There have been many first timers who learned to swim the first year they did the Chicago Triathlon and did amazing and conquered the swim. And then like we talked about, there's people that swam in high school or college. So the swim is really about where you are coming from and doing what you need to do based on that to get to the end. So I'm not going to talk a lot about like, really intricate details of strokes and things like that. It's more about anything you need to do, it's allowed. And you're probably going to piece together some things. You might do freestyle for a little bit and then need to flip on your back, whatever it is. That is more than great. Okay. And then you're going to see this big orange buoy and the swim is going to be over. And for most of us, it is this like adrenaline. Did that was awesome, but I'm glad it's over kind of feeling. And the way you got into the water, you're going to get out of the water. There's going to be a staircase coming out of the water. You're going to go, there'll be people there helping pulling you out. And then, yeah, I think this is kind of just, yeah. And then you're going to go on that 450 yard walk, run, whatever it is, back to transition. So if you weren't here or haven't watched the first clinic, this is one of the things of the Chicago Triathlon is where you get out of the water, and then where transition is for the swim T1 is about 450 yards. So if you see these buildings down here, that's basically where transition is. So you kind of have to go up and around to get there. Again, my recommendation is first bit of it and just get your sea legs under control. I like to take down my wetsuit halfway, and then when I get to transition, take the rest of it off. But there is no need to come out of the water and take off sprinting. That being said, also, this is a good thing to practice over the summer when you're out in the open water, going for a swim, coming out instead of going straight to the lockers, kind of get a feel for what your legs feel like, after a long swim. So that is it. So you're gonna go on this. This isn't much. I mean, this picture's pretty old. So now they have it. It's fully carpeted. Even though this was carpeted then, the carpet now is much nicer. So you don't need anything on your feet. And as you can see, this athlete is wearing neoprene booties. I guess this might be a good time to talk about this, but they are not allowed unless the water temperature is below 65 degrees. This was a very strange year that the water temperature dropped overnight by like 20 degrees, and it was pretty cold. I mean, it's probably the coldest one I've ever been at. But that's why usually you are not allowed to wear neoprene booties. So I just wanted to caveat that because it's in the picture. All right. So that is it on the what to expect in the swim course, what it looks like, things like that. So I'm going to go through gear, some brief kind of training tips. So if anybody has any questions about the course or anything like that, now's the time to pop them in there. And then we'll move on. So great. First question is, do we record these and send them out? Yes, I do record them, and I post them both in the Facebook group, and then there's actually a first timers page that is run off of our youth organizations page. So there is a first timers page that I will put into the chat here in a minute, where they're all posted. And also posted on that page are some recommendations of just places to shop. I'm going to show a quick video on how to put a wetsuit on, those kinds of things. But yes, and if you can't find them there, just email me, which that I will put in right now because I know my email address. Okay, there's my email address. And then the other question is Lakeshore Drive, the run bike path, closed to the public? So no, they can't close it. For the bike, Lakeshore Drive is closed from cars, but the path is not closed. They do a much better, that picture, I guess, is pretty old. And so now it's much more kind of fenced off, so that if anybody is going out for their Sunday run or whatever, they aren't right on the path. And the majority of people stay away from the lakefront path on Chicago Triathlon weekend, or go down there and say never mind and turn around, because there are a lot of people. But it is not, and you will occasionally get your runner, not biker, but not so much biker, but it is not actually technically closed off. So gear. So what do you need for the swim? And I showed this at the last clinic. First thing is you need whatever you're going to wear for the whole triathlon. So remember, we talked about, you want to wear something or pieces of something that you're not going to be going and changing your clothes for the race. So it might be adding some things, but what you don't really want to have to do is like go to have a bathing suit on, and then you're going to want to wear a whole like bike kit. So you have to take your bathing suit off, put on the bike kit. You want to be able to quickly kind of get to the next discipline of the triathlon. So easiest most thing is a triathlon suit. So that is made to swim, bike, and run in a minute here, I'll have some like brands. You can also Google triathlon suits and there'll be a ton of them. The benefits of wearing a triathlon suit is that you don't have to change anything. Like I said last time, my biggest, if you're going to invest in something, it's the shorts. You can swim in them. They have a small pad for biking, but they're easy to run in. And oftentimes in a triathlon, I will swim in tri shorts, a sports bra, and put my wetsuit on. And then when I get to my bike, take the wetsuit off and just put a t-shirt or a tank top or whatever it is on. But they come in 2 pieces or 1 piece. You will see. So the 1-piece triathlon suit, a lot of people will wear, and the benefit of that is you don't get any of the moving around, I mean, like your shirt's not riding up or anything like that. So some people do like the 1-piece kind of triathlon suit. That being said, you can totally swim in a swimsuit and put bike shorts on, or if you don't feel like you need bike shorts on over it when you get to the run. But whatever it is, that's you just need something to wear. And then your triathlon issued swim cap. So you're going to get a swim cap in your packet on the day, the weekend of. So there's going to be a packet pickup you have to go to either on Friday or Saturday. If you're doing the super sprint, you can go Friday or Saturday morning. You can pick it up at Foster Beach. There'll be a swim cap in there. On here is not the timing chip, but you will need your timing chip. Do not forget that. And then goggles. And as I talked about a little bit last time, on here it says open water goggles. Really all that means is I don't recommend like the ones that sit right in your eye socket that you'll see like professional swimmers wearing. One with a little bit of suction. Oftentimes they, wrap around a little bit on the side so you have better view. And you may want them, to be polarized or something like that. But really just not the tiny ones, because anything like that, you want something that's, nicely snug on your face. And really goggles, triathlon suits, really all of it, it's about trying it on and finding something that's comfortable for you. If you don't swim in a swim cap, usually I would recommend getting one just to practice in and just to understand like how it goes on and everything. Go to any like local, sporting goods store or obviously online or whatever it is. So that is what you need for the swim. So I am going to go into, and the question is, are nose plugs allowed? Yes, nose plugs are allowed. I know this is going to be a weird comment, but just in case anybody has heard anything about in the past, snorkels are not allowed if you have some kind of medical reason for a snorkel, then you just need to tell them that you're going to use a snorkel. But there was a time that snorkels were allowed, but they are not unless you have a medical reason, and then it's easy enough. But nose plugs are totally fine. So wetsuits. Oh, did I skip over? Let's go this way. Okay. The wetsuit 101. Do I need a wetsuit or do I not need a wetsuit? Wetsuits are not required. So it's really going to be about whether you want to wear a wetsuit or not. And the things that a wetsuit actually do, one, they keep you warm. And they do that by the water comes into the wetsuit. So you get wet, even though you're wearing the wetsuit. And then your body heats up that water, and that's what keeps you warm. Now, especially swimming early in the year, a lot of times the warmth piece is actually more about the training side of triathlons than race day. But you did see the picture of the very cold day. So it can get cold, but that is one thing a wetsuit does do. It does make you float. They are made of a neoprene rubber that is flexible, but it also has a lot of buoyancy. And wetsuits, especially when I talk about wetsuits, and if you're like online looking or you want to look for open water swim wetsuits, they will have a neoprene. You want to look for that rubber on the outside and then a lining on the inside. And it's the neoprene rubber on the outside that makes you buoyant. They can only be 5 millimeters thick. That is the thickest it can be. But what you'll see if you look at a wetsuit, and so let me go back to this, is the wetsuit company will tell you, it's 5 millimeters here, 3 millimeters here, 2 millimeters here. If you look around like the hips and the thighs, that's always going to be where it's the thickest, because that is the part of us that usually drops into the water. So that's where our 5 millimeter wetsuits of the neoprene rubber is going to be. Up around the arms, that's where it's going to be 3 or 4 millimeters, something less. And because you don't need your arms to float quite the way you want your hips to float. But it's good to sometimes, if you go to a open water swim triathlon company, so here's some brands: Orca, Blue 70, Roca, 2XU, Tier, Zoot, Synergy. If you go to trisports.com or swim outlets and search wetsuits, those are almost 99% going to be what you're looking for. If you go to like a diving website or a surf website, that is probably not what you're looking for. So you really want to make sure you look at open water swim wetsuits. And I talked about this last time, but there is one store left in the Chicagoland area that sells wetsuits, and it's Urban Tri Gear in Westmont. So I think that's out near Naperville. And they are, if you can make the trip, I would highly, highly make the trip out there to see them. They will also be down at the swim clinics that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And you can talk to them there. They do rent them for race day in a very limited capacity. So I would recommend, if you're thinking of renting a wetsuit for race day, talk to them at the clinic this weekend, call them, ask them when they open their list. Because a lot of people try to rent from them. So the great people, go out to them. So I feel like wetsuits make you warm and they make you float. And like I talked about, the rubber makes you float. And the reason behind that is, and the reason behind a wetsuit is, most of us, when we swim, our hips drop. A wetsuit is designed to keep you on top of the water. And that makes swimming easier. Sure, does it also might make you a little faster, but I think the more important thing is it makes it easier. And you're expending, especially if you are not, again, in that small portion of people who has a very strong swimming background. The wetsuit is going to make you sit on top of the water, so you don't have as much drag and you don't have to work as hard to move yourself through the water. Now, another truth that is not so positive is that putting on a wetsuit should be considered a sport in and of itself. It is not easy to get a wetsuit on. You'll get the hang of it, but I have had so many people, especially when I had our store, that would get frustrated the first time and be like, this isn't for me. But I would say, again, one of the big benefits of going to Urban Tri Gear or the swim clinics I'll talk about in a few minutes is to have somebody there to help you put on your wetsuit. Because once you get the hang of it, it's easy or easier, but it can be frustrating at first. And then last is, because oftentimes one of the barriers to wetsuits, especially early on, is, like, I'm going to invest in this thing that might be, it's an investment. can seem crazy. Well, the good thing is that they do last. I have had a wetsuit since 2014 that is perfectly fine. If you take care of it and you clean it and dry it right, it will last for a long time. So you are not going to have to buy a wetsuit every year or anything like that. And I would say, my non-official data is that the majority of people who do the first timers program do triathlons, come back to do more. So hopefully that's, can make you feel a little bit better if you decide to invest in it. Myths about wetsuits that you might have heard. I'm a bad swimmer, so I need the most expensive suit. No, actually, it's 100% the opposite. The most expensive suits have the thinnest rubber. And because, like I just talked about, most of us want more buoyancy. It's more the entry level suits are actually usually better for us entry level swimmers. So kind of, yeah. I can't move my arms with sleeves. So let me go back. There are all kinds of wetsuits, and I only have two here. So we have a sleeve wetsuit and sleeveless wetsuits. Whether to get sleeved or sleeveless is a total personal preference. Obviously, sleeved wetsuits in colder water is going to be better because water is not coming in the sides like the sleeveless. Some people really just prefer not to have the rubber around the arms and such. Sleeveless wetsuits tend to be less expensive than sleeve suits. But if you want a sleeved suit, you should not feel restricted in the shoulders. 99% of the time, if you put on a sleeved wetsuit and you feel like you can't move your shoulders, it's actually because you just didn't get it on all the way up. These things can stretch to like two times the size that they are. And so you might look at a suit and be like, not a chance. But they are very flexible. It's just about kind of almost rolling it on. So usually the first thing I'd say is, make sure it's on all the way up. But wetsuits should not be restrictive of the shoulders. That's usually a putting it on or a fit problem. The other myth is this suit was super easy to put on, so it must be the right size. If you can just slide into your wetsuit, it is probably too big. And the issue with a wetsuit being too big, though it might be really like, you might appreciate that you didn't just sweat for 10 minutes, is that when you get into the water, it will actually balloon out. And so then it will fill up with water, all of that excess neoprene rubber, and make it difficult to swim. One thing about the wetsuits that I was, when we were talking about flotation, a wetsuit, literally, if you try to dive under the water, it will pop you back out. They are very buoyant. And that's actually the first thing I usually do with athletes who are getting used to a wetsuit to feel more comfortable, is I say, try to swim down to the bottom. And you do, and it pulls you right back out. So, yeah, so I guess I say that to say, if swimming is a place of, if there's some anxiety around swimming, I would recommend, if you can get your hands on a wetsuit, to try it. But not the end of the world if you're like, no, I don't want to make that investment, or, or whatever, or you can't, whatever, you can't find one, or the rentals are out, or whatever. It's not lots of people swim without wetsuits. But that is, yeah, so. Let me go back here. So a couple of questions. How do you clean a wetsuit? The biggest thing about cleaning a wetsuit is, one, you want to hose after you swim, whether it's in Lake Michigan or wherever, take it home, put it in the shower, or take it out to a hose and hose it down with clean water, the inside and the out, and get all the sand off. And then what you're gonna do is turn it inside out, so that the inside lining is on the outside, and that's the part that is the hardest to dry and that gets moldy the quickest. So you let it dry that way. I would lay it out. You can hang it if you're going to hang it, much like shirts and things like that. Try to get a thicker hanger so that it doesn't poke through the shoulders. Once the inside is dry, which can take 24 hours, then flip it the other way. and let it dry, the outside dry the rest of the way. If you're storing it for a long period of time, fold it. And we always say fold it like a hamburger, not a hot dog. So like the top over the bottom, hopefully that makes sense. And store it folded, not hanging. So that's it. Just making sure you rinse it and dry it after every use. And then of what they're made out of. When you're putting on your wetsuit, inevitably you're going to get a mark in it because of your when you're trying to pull it on. It just happens over time. They make wetsuit glue that you just want to fill in those little nicks with, especially if it's bigger. So that's what you kind of just on your own repair those wetsuits. And happy to give some more guidance on that. Or you can always take it, again, if you happen to live in Westmont, you can take it to Urban Tri Gear and they can do it. If you happen to get a big tear, there are companies online that will sew them back up. We used to use them a lot. So again, happy to answer those questions. Question about chlorine. Chlorine does eat away at the neoprene rubber. It's no big deal. You swim in it a couple times in the pool, but I wouldn't do it like every day. And again, really make sure you wash it and rinse it afterwards. But over time, chlorine is not the best thing for it. But the pool is also a great place to try it for the first time. So don't be afraid to try it a couple of times there. Let's see. So there's a question about swimming, training in Lake Michigan. Is there a recommendation for a wetsuit or a tri-suit, especially with the colder water temperature and such? So like I said, right now, I mean, you can swim. You don't have to swim in a wetsuit. Is the water going to be cold right now? Yeah, it is. And it is for, a while, like usually later into June, you start to get warmer, and who knows, depending on the weather. So really that's, if it's the cold water that you're kind of debating whether to get a wetsuit or not, I guess that really depends on your tolerance for the cold water. But right now, if you are going to the swim clinic on next Tuesday, it's probably going to be a little chilly, but you can try to last as long as you can. But hopefully we get some warm temperature here and the water warms up. So I think this is a great time to talk about, let's see. So I keep mentioning these, so I want to make sure I skip to them real quick. Open water swim clinics. Do them 100%. If you can do them, do them. What are they? They are on Tuesdays and a couple Saturdays, a couple Tuesdays, a couple Saturdays. The dates are here. So there's 6 of them at Ohio Street Beach, which is down by Navy Pier. They're put on by a company called Open Water Swim Chicago, but this company also is the one who they used to run the Chicago Triathlon, and they started these amazing swim clinics. The swim clinics are broken up when you register, like beginner, intermediate, or aquathon, and they list out what exactly that means. So you choose which group you want to be in, and they do these great, I think they're like an hour-long clinics. So the more you can do, the better. How to register? Go under the Chicago Triathlon. Under programs, it'll be the first one. It says swim clinics, and it will direct you to Open Water Swim Chicago, and that's where you register. First one is next week. I would, again, it might be cold, but I would highly recommend going out at least. So a big portion is like a portion. I don't want to say big portion. A portion of it is on the beach with the coaches. So there's a bunch of coaches from the Chicagoland area who come in and coach them. Just giving you tips and talking through different things. And the good thing is throughout the summer, if you want to progress through the levels, that's exactly what they're there for. But definitely sign up for those. Other than that, they're starting in June, there are going to be so many people. There are always people at Ohio Street swimming, and a lot of them are training for the Chicago Triathlon. So like Saturday mornings are a big time. So there might not be organized events, but there are certainly people, training, and you'll meet people down there. They'll be like, "Oh, you're doing the Chicago Track." So good place to swim, Ohio Street Beach. There's a great question about last clinic, August 20th, is an aquathon, and they may do the aquathon every time, or a couple more than that. I'm blanking right now on that, but I 100%. If you feel like you've gotten the information from the other clinics, or if you're coming into it feeling like you're comfortable in open water, at that point, I would 100% do the aquathon as a way to practice. That's, it'll be as close as you can probably get. So the aquathon is going to be, you would swim and then run. And so you get out, swim at the Ohio Street. They have it marked off how far, and you can kind of choose your distance. And then you run the lakefront again. They have signs and markings. And the great thing about these clinics is, one, they rent wetsuits there. Right? Urban Tri Gear does. Again, if you're going to rent a wetsuit, get there early because there's not a ton of them. And then two is they have Gear Watch, which is amazing. So Brightside, which is a charity that raises money for, I think, pediatric cancer research. They run the gear check there. And so you don't have to worry about your bag or anything like that down there. So it makes it really easy to do. I got everything. Okay. I want to show that I keep skipping over this. So we made a video years ago. This is Rashawn. He's an amazing individual who unfortunately left us for Washington, but we made a video on how to put on a wetsuit. This is on the Live Grit first timers page. I'll also post it on the Facebook, but it's a good little primer of
we're ready.
How to put on a wetsuit.
Careful not to use our
We're not going to watch
just
it.
Using the flat part of our.
I just wanted to show everybody that is available if you want a little primer before you go down and take it on down at the beach or whatever. Okay, let's see. One question: can you practice swimming at other beaches? Yes, you absolutely can. There's 31st Street Beach. I think last time I talked about my find last year, which is the beach behind the planetarium, which was a really cool place that was very quiet. So yes, you can 100% practice anywhere. The only place that I know of, but I could totally be wrong, so at Ohio Street, they put buoys in the water after Memorial Day, and there'll be 2 buoys in the water. There'll be one, the first one, and then there'll be the second one. The first one is 1/4 of a mile. The second one is 1/2 of a mile. So that can kind of be a good goal for you if you're doing the sprint. By the end of the summer, you want to be able to get to the buoy and back. Then you're done. You got your swim. And if you're doing the International or Olympic, you'd go to the second buoy and back. The other good thing about Ohio Street, and many of these places are good, is that you also, if you're just getting comfortable with swimming, you don't have to swim out into the deeper water. You can actually swim parallel to the shore, so you can get that comfort of being able to put your feet down, at the beginning while you're getting comfortable. So, but yeah, lots of great beaches, which we're lucky to have here in Chicago. So let's see. So kind of to wrap things up is, I think what we talked about I said early on, the biggest thing is, what's your goal? What's your goal for the swim? And like I said, in talking to probably most of us, the goal is to get through the swim in a way that we feel confident, that we're proud of, without using all of our energy and being exhausted. So when we go get on the bike and the run, it's like I used it all up there. So that's where we want to get. Again, swim's the shortest piece. It's the first piece. You don't want to use everything up there. Um, and the other thing is, yeah, endurance versus speed. The swim is not a place, certainly, and again, given a triathlon, it's a long distance. No matter whether we're talking about the super sprint, international, I mean, that you are doing 3 sports. It is a long distance. At the swim, you want to try to minimize the amount that you are in uh, kind of that anaerobic, like phase. And so focusing more on kind of building that endurance first. And then as you build that endurance, you can, add on the speed. But step one should be feeling comfortable with the distance more than kind of the speed. I said it before and I will say it again. Number one tip of this whole program, it's pretty straightforward, is get in the open water as much as possible. Because again, that's the one. I think swimming is it is obviously a physical sport, but it is very much mental for a lot of us. And having gone out into Ohio Street a day that it's choppy, I wouldn't say like go all the way out to the buoy, but getting in the water, swimming parallel, having gone through some big waves, so that when there's a little chop on race day, you're like, I got this. So the more you can, and if you don't live in downtown Chicago, wherever open water is, like, other parts of Lake Michigan, the quarry, whatever it is, as much as possible. And then going on, so then training. So here in the next week or so, we will be putting out, I think I said this at the last clinic, a very basic, but but solid training plan for 12 weeks for both the super sprint and international distance. So this is just kind of a example of it. So what might that look like? And some of this, it's meant to be tailored to whatever you want. We have the open water. When you see open water, that means out in the open water. But if you can't get in the open water, then this is more about pool and just doing a more endurance distance. When we have like the swim here where you see on, I guess, presumably Wednesday, this is designed more for like a pool workout. So if you're newer to training for the swim, so you're gonna have a warm up. So like a 50-meter kick. That might mean if you're swimming in a 25-meter pool, it means you're going to grab the kickboard that they might have, a lot of pools have, and you are going to kick for down and back, and get 50 meters of kick just to warm up. And then the main set is 6 by 50 meters with 15 seconds rest in between. So what that means is you're going to swim down and back, stop, wait 15 seconds. And the goal here is that this rest is let your heart rate come down. So if you feel like you need more than 15 seconds, take it. Let your heart rate come back down, and then you're going to go again, and you'll do that 6 times. So again, basic. We're not getting really fancy here, but this is like a solid direction that will build up to where you'll be at the distance that you need to be for race day. A couple quick things on training, just as a heads up, I guess. In the training plan, you'll see, it's on here, week 3, this brick workout. So in triathlon training, when we talk about a brick workout, most of the time what we're talking about is going from the bike to the run. And there's lots of different thoughts about it, but the reason why they call it a brick is because when you get off your bike after a longer bike and go straight to a run, your legs feel like bricks. They're very heavy. It takes a little while for you to flush out everything that you kind of built up on the bike. Not to mention you're going to a whole different movement pattern. So it takes some time. So you actually want to train that transition throughout the summer. And you're not going to do this every time, but once a week, starting after I think week 2, you'll see these brick workouts. And those are really important to not skip over. And the idea is that you bike and then you go straight to the run like you would in the triathlon. So you don't stop for 20 minutes, you get a drink, like have a snack or whatever. You just go straight to the run. And when you get to that run, over time, your body will adapt quicker and quicker, and it will always feel heavy but you'll start to get a hang of it. And I will also say when you do this, for the first time, you're going to feel like you're going at like slow motion. And I promise you, you are not. It's just this kind of weird feeling. That's the most important brick. Swim to bike. It's great to do those like back to back sometimes, but not as important as like actually training this brick. As far as, we often get the question, will I do at any point the whole triathlon? Not unless there's a reason that you really want to do the whole triathlon. As you'll see, these will increase and you'll start to get more days where you have like 2 sports on the same day. But, it's great to do like a mock triathlon ahead of time. We'll talk about this where you practice transitions and things like that. But you don't need to do the whole distance, and you probably don't want to, because, just given you don't want to exert that much, like right before the triathlon. So we'll talk more about the training plan at the next one, because I think it will be that week that it comes out. And on that note, let's see if I can copy and paste this. I doubt I can, but I'm going to have questions, email me. If you haven't signed up for the first timers group, do that. I'm going to put the link to the first timers page in here right now. So again, this is a page where there's just all of the clinics are on there, and just the training plans will be on there as well. So we will get those up in the next week or so, just making some tweaks. But yeah, I think for the swim, that is about it, unless there's any other questions or anything I missed. Go ahead and shout it out or pop it in the chat. But if not, the next clinic is 3 weeks from today, and the bike. We will be talking about the bike, and then transition, then run, because the run is always the shortest one. So yeah, well, thank you everybody for coming, and hopefully I will see some of you down at the beach over the next couple of weeks. And if anybody has any questions in the meantime, reach on out or post them in the Facebook group. We'll start getting that chat going here for everybody. So have a good night.